I'm in the beautiful, historic and scenic Spanish city of Malaga, about to embark on another Mediterranean cruise that is named the Spirit of Iberia. Iberia being the ancient Latin name for the Spanish peninsula, from the Greek Iberes, that refers to the Celtic people of the peninsula, from which we get the term Hispania and Hispanic. We shall travel up and down the western coast of Iberia, calling up both Spanish and Portuguese ports, and the delightful British territory of Gibraltar. I'm with my son Nate, and we're looking forward to exploring not only beautiful places, but places which in times past were significant in the history of Great Britain. Once again, we are sailing the good ship Marella Spirit, formerly the Thompson Spirit. The sky is blue, the sun is shining, and the expectation sky high. We first board the ship. An outside cabin this time, beautiful and spacious. Then it's time to explore. Malaga certainly has a great reputation for being a beautiful city. It's also the home of Pablo Picasso. It lies on the Costa del Sol, the coast of the sun. And Nate and I first take a stroll along the coast and into the city. It's a great feeling to be here in the sunshine. But the problem is we're only here for a few hours, so we're going to take it easy and enjoy the day and not rush around trying to see everything. Nate gets his drone ready to fly, while I get the first shots. It's a little breezy, but the drone can cope. And here is Nate's shot. Malaga is well known for its beautiful beaches, and there's certainly no shortage of people enjoying it all. The warm waters of the Mediterranean, perfect on a day like today. La Farola, the lighthouse, is one of the oldest in Spain. Beyond the lighthouse, there's a long and interesting promenade that serves both as a marina for boats and a prime location for shops and restaurants. The port busy with many visitors. Many enjoying al fresco cafes. Down the port, Malaga. Amazing. It was a great place to stroll around. Plenty of facilities for visiting boats. And occasionally a reminder of its historic past. I was impressed by the thought that had gone into the planning of the port. Aesthetic design and beautiful gardens. One can take a boat ride for a few euros.
This is one of those places where the sun is always shining.
Well, almost always. We'd enjoyed the stroll, but we now were entering the historic part of the city. Majestic buildings in the setting of tropical gardens. It was now time to visit what is perhaps the #1 place here, the amazing Alcazaba, the citadel, the Muslim fortress palace of Malaga. When Nate is with me, he's always looking for angles to shoot interesting shots, usually slow or fast or different. In Copenhagen it was the pigeons. This time, in Malaga, the pigeons are taking a bath. This is his iPhone shot, only HD. The birds are soaking in the fountain. We're looking forward to soaking in history. Alcazaba, the fortress palace, from the Arabic meaning citadel. You've heard of the Casbah, yes? This is the Alcazaba. Arabic, like another famous place in Spain, Alhambra, the Red One. According to Arab sources, it was built on the instructions of Badis, king of the Berber Taifa of Granada, who also built the Alhambra. It's a must-visit place that abounds in both history and beauty. The architecture is magnificent, and it affords spectacular views over the city. According to Arab sources, it was built between 1057 and 1063 on a hill in the center of the city, overlooking the port, and comprises 2 walled enclosures, the inner and the outer walls. Though much transported material was used in its construction, it has been determined that capitals, columns, and other materials were taken from the nearby ancient Roman theatre at the foot of the hill. It's been commented that it combines defensive purpose and the aesthetic beauty of an Arab palace. The views nowadays include a variety of styles. The central part is built around rectangular patios that include gardens and pools. When Nate saw this fountain, he immediately set up his camera for a slow-mo. The result was an interesting shot. It takes little imagination to understand that this was a delightful place in which to reside. The building's military characteristics make it one of the most important Muslim citadels in Spain today, with battlements, turrets, arrow slits, and machicolations, making it very effective. A machicolation is an opening through which missiles or boiling oil is cast on the unsuspecting enemy beneath. Having said all that, location is usually the most effective defense. It overlooks the city and the bay from a height. But it's time to return to the ship. It's been a fascinating few hours, amidst beauty and history. I love beautiful scenery, but I always feel it's enhanced by reminders of yesteryear. In this respect, Malaga has been a delight. As we left, we encountered the remains of the Roman theatre, built in the 1st century BC under Emperor Augustus. It fell into ruin and was only rediscovered in 1951. It was then restored and opened in 2011. The amphitheatre is now open throughout the year for visitors and is used for open-air performances. It can seat 220 spectators. So we stroll back to the ship, getting a smoothie on the way. Finally, the sail away. Cruise ships arrive early in the morning and depart in the evening, usually as the sun sets. And thus we get a cool, quiet interlude in which we can reflect. Our day started in London at 5 a.m. and involved a flight here. Then a wonderful time exploring. Now it's time for dinner. After a great day in Malaga, we get to enjoy a day at sea. Great English breakfast with kippers and a nice view out the window. Marella Spirit is an older ship and comparatively small, but I love it. The weather forecast is not great, but so far so good. And we're able to sit, relax, and watch the world go by. Make that watch the sea go by. It's also a time to explore the ship and look around. Join the briefing for the venues we'll visit. And catch up on sleep. The first day is always hectic. As the World Cup is happening, we get to watch. Then relax by the pool and jacuzzi. Nate is getting some shots on his phone as usual, though the sun has disappeared behind the clouds. Still, it's very enjoyable and we appreciate the chance to relax. Tonight is also the captain's ball, when we'll dress up a little.
Beautiful atmosphere. I'm enjoying this. We just had a great meal and great surroundings.
Then back to the World Cup before bed. After the delights of Spain, the next port of call is Porto in Portugal. A fabulous place to visit, and Nate and I are justifiably looking forward to it as we board the bus that will take us to the centre of the city and back for €7. Weather amazing as usual, and Nate has his iPhone to augment my incomparable camera work. Decisions. What to ride? But we decided to walk. Maybe we should have ridden. Maybe not.
We're in the center of Old Porto, about to explore.
The bell tower central here, beautiful architecture and great design. I like it. Nate is planning the route. Porto is the town that gave both its country and its wine their names. It's the second largest city in Portugal. It's certainly a vibrant city and full of old world charm. One great thing about European cities is the architecture. There's pride of preservation and an appreciation of former styles. We soon arrived at the Miradoro da Vittoria, a lookout point for great views over the river and city below. Clearly the River Douro is important. Up on the hill, Porto Cathedral is prominent. Below, other churches are beautiful and numerous. On seeing the river, we naturally wanted to visit the river. So we made our way down the steps to the riverside, a shortcut. And we got to see many interesting and colourful places on the way down. In case you're wondering why all the flags, the World Cup is on at the moment and Portugal are playing. We found a great shop selling wood goods, and Nate actually bought a beautiful cork tray. The problem is that he left it on the bus back to the ship. We did have a chat with the owner, who gave me permission to film his delightful shop. The quality of the goods was excellent. Just up the street, we found a cozy little coffee shop and decided to get a boost. Nate loves his espresso. We're still making our way down to the river, but we are getting close. The Palacio de Bolsa, the Stock Exchange Palace, is located in the historic center of the city and is a beautiful place. The statue of the great explorer Prince Henry the Navigator, leader of great expeditions of discovery in West Africa, and born here in 1394. There's a legend that if you ask him the way to the river, he'll point it out. There's a statue of him in Belgrave Square in London, across from the Portuguese embassy. And not only that, there's also a statue of him in the USA, Fall River, Massachusetts. He clearly has a great PR team. From there we walked down toward the river, passing along the way this old house, the Casa do Infante, now a museum where Prince Henry was born. So it's over 600 years old. Nate and I had a look around. At last we reached the River Douro. The promenade with its terraced townhouses, always a popular spot to eat, get some pictures. It's hard to believe, but before the tourists took it over, this was a busy, hard-working port. Now a place of great architectural beauty and colourful. How about a boat ride? Very popular and a great way to see the harbour and get a different perspective. After that, have a drink or a snack, and simply stroll around, enjoying the ambience. Maybe a ferry across the Douro. I have to say, as a videographer, that this place is very photogenic, especially for video. It's a dynamic place, and the video camera portrays that feeling. It's a splendid location to sit a while, surrounded by fascinating sights. This is a historic site right here. When this was the city wall, it had 18 gates or hatches, and this is the only one surviving to this day. I'll stroll down the riverfront, the river on one side, the townhouses and alleys and balconies on the other. It was the highlight of the visit. Magical, memorable. The bridge is Louis I Bridge. Above, the church and the monastery of Serra do Pila. The upper deck carries pedestrians and trams. The lower deck, vehicular traffic. So now we plan to walk across it. So we walk to the funicular railway that will take us to the top. We've been viewing the Louis I Bridge from the riverside, but we're eager to see the views from the top. The funicular railway is the easy way up for €5, so we buy the tickets and up we go. I always feel these attractions should feature non-reflective glass, though all I had to do was rotate the polarizing filter on the camera. The top here is the level of the city, and I was immediately impressed by the architecture and the elegance of the trams. Al fresco dining, perfect weather, sunny, warm not hot, and a gentle breeze up here. The elaborate decoration of their houses very impressive. At first glance, I wondered why they called the tram the English cart in Spanish. I realized the Porto tram was advertising a Spanish department store chain that is in fact the biggest in Europe. Up here we can also see part of the Fernandina walls. The ancient city walls, built between the 11th and 15th century and restored in 1920. that are graced by a statue of Arnaldo Gama, a well-known Porto writer. It's easy to see that Porto is a tourist city, and the abundance of tourist facilities is very evident and welcome, enabling visitors to see the sights, which we did on foot. We then strolled over to the bridge. There's no traffic on the upper level of the bridge except the trains and pedestrians, the vehicular traffic being below. The views spectacular. To come up here and enjoy the view is a must-do whilst in Porto. Nathan was busy shooting. This is his shot. People like ants walking down below. The high banks of the river reminiscent of the Norwegian fjords. The views are impressive in that they give a completely different glimpse of the city. Below, the wine boats, the Rabello, which in times past transported kegs of wine from the vineyards to Porto, now converted to tourist boats. The name Rabello means little tail because of the long timber rudders on the stern. In the distance are the warehouses where the port wine was brought to mature. An interesting fact about Porto is that downtown Porto is the highest place in the city. Having said that, this riverfront has to be one of the most beautiful in Europe. The old city wall with its 18 gates clearly visible from up here. What a fascinating sight, and one which everybody wants to shoot. The opposite bank of the river also impressive, allowing the visitor to see the city of Vila Nova de Gaia on the opposite bank, and down which the cable car runs. Our plan is to take a ride on the cable car, getting some different views of the city. Looking back over the bridge, it's an impressive sight. The funicular railway and the old city wall can clearly be seen from here. The entrance to the cable car is at the end of the bridge on the right. We were most impressed by the beauty of the city. Spectacular views with fascinating things to see and a special feel to it. Certainly plenty of things for visitors to enjoy. The Atlantic Ocean is only 3 kilometers down the river. A riverboat ride on a sunny day is a real pleasure and an excellent way to see the sights. Looking back, we can clearly see both the upper and lower bridges. A fascinating design. Then we ride the cable car, Teleférico de Gaia. €5 per head, 5-minute ride down the riverbank. Taking in the views. This is fun. This is different. Great views of Porto from the opposite bank. Interesting things happening on the river below. The Teleférico actually descends to the sea level. So when we get out, we're on the riverside. Above us, the cable cars. Before us, the interesting riverside. Ferries cross the river here, so this is an option on how to return. In the meantime, we had a look around.
We've just spent a delightful few hours here on the estuary in Porto, and it really is a delightful place. It's just been fantastic.
Below us in the river, a few thousand catfish. And the usual goings-on. Nate taking it all in. A rabello complete with wine casks, probably 100 years old. Before us could be a scene from yesteryear. Majestic buildings looking out over the river. Meanwhile, the local youth do what local youth do.
€3 and it's the quickest way across the river.
So we boarded the ferry to cross the Douro. One more angle on the bridge. The train passing over. And we're ready for the walk back up to the city. Through some historic streets. Probably changed much since 1520. We then hopped back on the bus to the ship, moored about 10 minutes away. And off we sail to our next destination, the legendary Lisbon, capital city of Portugal, awaits us. So we take a shower and get ready for dinner as the sun sets on another memorable day. Arriving in Lisbon, the ship docked near the city, so we just walked across the road and down the street. Very interesting place and a beautiful cathedral. So we strolled along in the sunshine, surrounded by historic and interesting architecture. I was in my element, my kind of place. And we've not arrived in the city centre yet, but there's something special about Mediterranean cities. Centuries of history and intrigue add to the experience. Even the shops are special. Coffee anyone? Coffee came from Ethiopia and apparently arrived in Europe via Malta in 1565, brought by Turkish Muslim soldiers who'd been imprisoned by the Knights of St. John when they tried in vain to capture Malta. The rest is history. The journey continues. As we neared the square, the architecture got grander, the traffic heavier, and the expectation higher. The famous Commerce Square did not disappoint, with the iconic tramcars, the usual central statue. Nate was checking our location on the map, planning the day. Al fresco dining clearly a favorite. The square being very impressive. The Rua Augusta Arch marks the entrance to the city and was built to commemorate the rebuilding of the city after the earthquake of 1755 destroyed it. The female allegory of glory that crowns the arch is 23 feet high. The statue is of Jose I, who rebuilt the city after the earthquake. The king on his horse is symbolically crushing snakes in his path. Nate was filming with me and providing some great shots. The elephant was a symbol of great overseas discoveries. Nowadays, the square is a popular gathering place, not least at this time, as the Football World Cup was in full swing and Portugal were playing Morocco later in the day. The tantalizing spectacle was to be shown on the big screen here, so the crowds were beginning to gather. The temperature was a balmy 25 degrees, humidity low, making it a very pleasant place to stroll around and explore. The arch is in the movie Gulliver's Travels, in which the Lilliputians wheeled Gulliver through the arch. So into the ancient city we go, certainly impressive and a wonderful place to be on such a day as this. The flags of Portugal prominent. Portugal, by the way, managed to squeeze a 1-0 win, but that was the only game they won. It's a great place to stroll around. Rua Augusta being long and straight, with 6-story buildings on either side, creating an awe-inspiring effect. As the flags fluttered expectantly, the fans sang and made their way to get a good vantage point for the match. Nathan recording the moment. It's a popular tourist stretch. The 148-foot centre Jester lift provides great views over the city, but it involved queuing for an hour. I would have loved to go up and shoot, but no time. I have to say, I've never seen a structure quite like it. On reaching Dom Pedro Square, we got a bag of strawberries. The square was exquisite, fountains and impressive architecture, making it a must-see place, and we really enjoyed sitting a while, enjoying the ambience and the strawberries. Lisbon is one of the oldest cities in the world. In Europe, only Athens is older, predating other European capitals by centuries. The things, more than any others, that make European cities stand out are the squares, with their fountains and statues, magnificent. Meanwhile, we ate the strawberries and then continued the walk, simply soaking in the atmosphere and enjoying this delightful city. Our next stop was the infamous Den of Iniquity, both loved and hated, that has quietly percolated into contemporary society. When I visit India, I'm reminded that a lot can happen over a cup of coffee. Indeed, here it's happening. We're about to order the Uber.
We're in Lisbon, having a coffee. We're gonna order a taxi to go up to the Castle of São Jorge.
€3 and have a look at the castle and the city from above.
Castelo de São Jorge, St. George's Castle, is impressive as it overlooks historic Lisbon. The ride up there is also impressive. Following the trams and getting a look at daily life here. The trams were first introduced in 1873. We followed the 28 tram, but wished we'd ridden it. Then we entered the world of cobbled streets and history. This is certainly my kind of destination, where my imagination runs wild and free. Now Nate walks in history's footsteps. And we check out the conquistadors' haunts. The hilltop being a fascinating place to visit, even before we get to the castle. Get the tickets. Enjoy the view. The sun was taking a nap. The World Cup was in full swing. King Jose I having a great view. Time to explore. King Manuel I is prominent outside the Castle Museum. Inside, the museum has many exhibits, giving insights into the historical aspects of the city and the castle. It was founded by Arabs in the 11th century when Lisbon was an Arab city. So we crossed the moat and began our tour of the castle itself. It was completely restored in 1938. There are many stone structures that have survived for centuries. Ten towers protect the castle, and we enjoyed the exploration, learning about its story from the online guide as we soaked in the history. Visitors can walk around the castle walls and get great views, both of the castle within and the city without. Getting insights on how the castle was designed to repel invaders. An interesting fact is after discovering the sea route to India, Vasco da Gama was received by King Manuel I in the castle here in 1498. Then a welcome drink, watching the peacocks.
It's been a nice interlude in St. George's Castle, but the sun went in, but nevertheless able to just look around.
We decided to walk back to the ship and enjoy the sights of the city on the way. St. Vincent, recognized for his charity and compassion for the poor. Al fresco restaurants. The iconic trams. The narrow, steep, cobbled streets with numerous trams, a hallmark of Lisbon. I'd never seen anything quite like it, though many European cities still have trams, some old, some new. Here they were antiques and reminded me of my childhood visits to Blackpool. One of the trams is a tourist hill tour, a great way to see the place if walking up hills is a challenge. It was an interesting walk down to the port. We then sailed down the Tagus River under the 25th of April bridge, named after the revolution of that day, and reflected on the wonderful day we'd enjoyed in this very special city. And even the sun appeared again. Early morning, mooring up in Portimão, Portugal. Another beautiful day. The pilot slowly taking us in. Portimão is in the Algarve region of Portugal, the most southern part, and is historically a fishing and shipbuilding centre. Having a nice breakfast before disembarking. And taking the ship's €7 bus into the town. A great promenade. So we get our first shots and take a look around. Portimão has a reputation for great beaches, interesting history, superb scenery, and fun things to do. So our expectations are high, and we're looking forward to the day. First thing is to find a place for a coffee so that we can sit and enjoy the place before we embark on the exploration. This was perfect. Great views in every direction. I have to say that these times are some of the best times. Simply relaxing, chatting about the place, sitting, enjoying the moment. People watching perhaps, soaking in the atmosphere of a new place. Anticipating the exploration, enjoying the drink. First impressions? A really attractive place. Clean, well laid out, and very pleasant to sit here and enjoy. We then decided to take the toy train around the town, mainly to see what there was to see. It was a great choice, mainly because we decided there was nothing much to see here. Still, it was a fun ride, and it certainly fulfilled its purpose. Had we had more time, it would have been a nice stroll, and I would have liked to see the inside of the church. There were some interesting sights on the way.
We are in Portimão. We have taken the train around the town, and it's a very good excursion to find out what you're not missing by skipping the town and going to the beach.
So we went to the beach, a scenic, laid-back part of town that we were lucky not to encounter in the high season. At this time of the year, the crowds are conspicuous by their absence. Certainly a beautiful place to enjoy the wonderful Mediterranean climate. Though not being in the Med, the sea temperature is several degrees cooler than countries bordering or in the Med. So we began our exploration. Being interested in history, we made our way to the eastern end of the Praia da Rocha beach, where the fort of Santa Catarina, a medieval fort, is situated, and which was built to defend from pirates, as well as military invasions. We walked up the staircase that is built into the cliffs to take a closer look. The main gate is quite small and faces the land. Between battlements which face the sea and overlook the beach, the Miradoro de San Catarina inscription indicating that perhaps the main purpose was as a viewpoint from which to spot approaching danger. We took a look inside, which was very pretty, with arches, trees and flowers, and a chapel dedicated to St. Catherine. And a well in the courtyard. Superb views over the marina and beach. And the river which leads to the town centre and the port. The expansive beach has often been the venue for the Beach Football Mini World Cup. Praia de Rocha means rock beach because of the limestone cliffs at the western end. It's said to be one of the best beaches in Europe. So Nate prepares to get a bird's eye view. The seagull checking us out. Excellent facilities here. Basketball court, beach swimming complex in the sea, swimming pool, marina, beach cafes, and plenty of shops and restaurants. For those not activity inclined, a sun lounger and a parasol fit the bill. Or perhaps a dip in the ocean. But remember, it's the Atlantic, not the Med, and the temperature is cooler, though certainly not cold.
So now we've sat down in a nice alfresco restaurant outside the beach, and we've ordered some typical Portuguese grilled sardines with some fried mussels and Portuguese sausage.
We always want to try out the local delicacies, and here the food was excellent. I love mussels, the sardines were delicious, and the Portuguese sausage a reminder of Hawaii, where it's also a favorite. Thoroughly enjoyable and as authentic as one can get here. With a great view and being right on the seafront, an ideal place to watch the world go by. Topped it all off with a coffee. And of course, a chat. Then back to the shooting. So we walked back past the fort to see the marina and the beach football field. This is right at the eastern end of the beach, next to the Arad River. A floating inflated swimming pool, shops, fun things to do. And some unusual sights for here. The marina is beautiful, and there are shops and restaurants here catering to both local and fast food. Perhaps take a boat trip. There are different kinds. Ranging from the high-speed adventure inflatables to the leisurely, laid-back tourist sightseeing trip. Nate about to get more shots. Portimão town in the distance, and our ship. So we enjoyed taking a stroll and watching life on the river. Across the river, another castle. Castles like this guarded the entrance to the river. It was one of those pleasant, balmy afternoons in the sunshine that bring back memories. We will now visit the western end of the beach and check out the tourist haunts. We then arrived at the western end of the beach, which has to be the most impressive part of this place. In the UK, Portimão is often described as the Blackpool of Portugal, without the charm. To be fair to Portimão, that title has probably more to do with the visitors than the place itself. Though clearly it caters to the wants of tourists, as we saw when we explored this part of town. For Nate and me, the place was great. The weather was the best, and we managed to come here when there were few tourists. So let's take a look. The main tourist stretch, right next to the beach. It has plenty of shops and restaurants. And looking at them, they clearly cater for British people. There are many pubs too. And all this right on the seafront. Tourists coming here from the UK will feel at home. And the al fresco dining option in the warm climate is a delight. But the beach is the main attraction, and even today when the tourists are scarce, there are many people on the beach. So we walked back to get the bus to the ship. Actually not far away. 5 minutes later we were boarding. An hour later we were sailing away. Down the Arad River, the pilot keeping a close eye on us as we sailed past many of the places we'd just visited. And out into the open sea. Portimão is not one of the great historic European venues, but it's a great place to relax. And indeed, Nate and I have had a relaxing day.
Just had a great day in Portimão. Now heading off to Cadiz. Complete our adventure.
Our next port of call, Cadiz in Spain, is a very different proposition. It has a wealth of historic places. Being a principal port of the Spanish Navy for years, so we're looking forward to Spanish food, Spanish music, and some history. Nate already planning the day while we have Wi-Fi, and as usual people discuss the events of the day. It has certainly been a very enjoyable time in Portimão. Cadiz, Andalusia, Spain, one of the oldest cities in Western Europe. Founded by the Phoenicians, it has archaeological remains dating back 3,100 years. Christopher Columbus sailed from Cadiz on his second and fourth voyages, and later the city became the home port of the notorious Spanish treasure fleet. As a result, it became a major target of Spain's enemies. This monument celebrates the establishment of the Constitution of Cadiz, the first constitution of Spain, established in 1812. I'd heard much about the old city's streets here, with narrow alleys connecting large plazas, but to immediately come across the Plaza de España, with its gardens, fountains, and beautiful buildings was special. But as soon as we left it, we were in the narrow streets, with their balconies, shuttered windows, street lamps, even cannon on street corners. They were placed on the corners of buildings in times past to protect them as carriages ran past. As many as 114 cannon were thus used. My first impression was that we disembarked from the ship and immediately entered a different world, and enthralled that we were able to be here. Our usual habit is to stroll ashore, take in first impressions of the city, and then have a coffee. Nate, being a connoisseur, will often check online for a good place where we can enjoy the best coffee a place has to offer. You notice the water? In Europe, water is usually served with coffee to cleanse the palate and replace body water. It ended up being a special moment. In Cadiz, we were immediately confronted by so many fascinating facets and intriguing sights. Whilst on the one hand it was a feast for the senses, on the other hand it was intellectually beguiling and totally stimulating. Cadiz is on a peninsula surrounded by the sea. Nate's pointing out our ship, literally only a few minutes walk away. We then encountered a charming little shop selling local products, and immediately Nate saw it as a great gift opportunity, and a leather pencil case was acquired with personalized calligraphy and design. The shop owner being very adept. A work of art. Next stop, the Plaza de la Catedral and the Cathedral of Cadiz, with its panoramic tower that affords great views over the city. The Mediterranean weather always enhances the experience for me. Plazas like this, with backdrops of intricate architecture and alfresco dining, always a delight. As a visitor, I always love it when I can absorb the special atmosphere of a place. It gets imprinted on the memory. But Cadiz brings back memories of history in school. 1587, when Francis Drake occupied the harbor for 3 days, captured 6 ships, and destroyed 31 others. This impertinent, contemptuous act by Drake became known in England as the singeing of the King of Spain's beard. I remember it well. The new cathedral was built from 1722 to 1838. That's 116 years, and clearly more than one architect had influence. In fact, though originally intended to be in the Baroque style, it contains other elements, and was finally finished in the neoclassical style. As with many churches and cathedrals in Spain, it's a stunning accomplishment. The intricate design and workmanship put into these places of worship never cease to amaze me. Many paintings and relics from the old cathedral I always look up when I'm in a cathedral, and when one does this, one's senses are immediately assailed by the beauty of the ceilings. But we had another purpose for coming here. We began to climb the Levante Tower that is open to the public and involves a steep walk. How high is it?
Only 40 meters.
40 meters up.
That's easy.
Worth it.
Indeed, it was. A perfect Mediterranean day. And not only am I in the dead center of the observable universe, but I can see as far as the eye can see. In the daytime, that is. In the distance, our ship takes a break. Normally this is a bird's eye view, but I suppose from the tower of a cathedral it's a divine view. Below, a divine dancer, complete with castanets, Spanish hat, Spanish dress and Spanish music. Meanwhile, up on high, we can see our next destination, the beach. Looking a little misty over there. Up here one gets a great idea of the location and layout of the city. That hotel looks great. Maybe it's a restaurant too. I get my shots up here, and Nathan gets his. Then back to explore.
Well, suddenly we've encountered the mist right on the ocean here. It's quite strange, but still warm, and even a nice breeze.
By the time we'd walked to the beach area, a thick mist had descended, and it was like a wholly different day and place. Believe it or not, this was shot exactly 15 minutes after the last shot on the cathedral tower. Not only the mist, but also the wind suddenly got up. It was still warm. It just felt strange, like what happened. Look at the flags. Nate had bought a bucket of snails, but they were disappointing. So we sat and watched the strange mist. I've never seen anything like it. It was so quick to come. The wind too. Visibility was down to a couple of 100 yards. The Santa Catalina Castle will be our next destination. In the meantime, we are praying the mist will disappear just as quickly as it came. Having said that, it did make for unusual shots.
We were just sitting here for half an hour, and already the outlook has changed.
Our prayers were answered. We still had a nice breeze, but the sea mist disappeared just as quickly as it came. This shot is 27 minutes later. So it's deep-fried squid with a bread roll and a drink. As we continue to enjoy the Mediterranean sunshine. Then on to the castle. The Santa Catalina Castle was built by Felipe II after the Anglo-Dutch looting of 1596. It's star-shaped with two bastions and surrounded by a moat. It's a World Heritage Site and admission is free. So we had a look around. The chapel was built 100 years after the castle. In the grounds, several pieces of modern art. It was an interesting and enjoyable place to look around. Over 400 years of history. A beautiful place with great views and history all around. Nate particularly enjoyed it. It was to Cadiz that the vast treasure that supported the Spanish Empire arrived, in treasure galleons which at the time became targets of thieves who wanted to steal from thieves. As my famous namesake wisely discerned, the love of gold is a root of all kinds of evil, and some people eager for money wandered from their faith to get it. Here their names were Felipe and Elizabeth, hardly setting a good example, actually encouraging it, abusing one of the most important tenets of their faith, namely, the good example of their adherents. Everybody wanted gold, and Queen Elizabeth I of England wanted her share. Thus Cadiz was a well sought after place in the late 16th century. In fact, England and Spain were constantly fighting one another at that time, and Cadiz and nearby Spanish cities were venues for many a battle.
I love history, and places like this always fascinate me.
Come to think of it, this castle would never have been built were it not for the English. Now there's a profound thought. So we head back to the ship, walking around the coast. A beautiful walk through history and gardens. The sounds of waves lapping on the shore. Enveloped by aesthetic elegance. Reminders of the past all around as we strolled along the deserted promenade. Unchanged for centuries. Then back onto the ship to prepare for dinner. In no time, we were sailing away with our memories of another engrossing day in Spain and the intriguing city of Cadiz, perhaps the oldest settled city in Western Europe with 3,000 years of history. Next stop, the iconic Rock of Gibraltar. When we woke up and looked out the cabin window, we saw the Rock of Gibraltar, an anomaly placed at the southern tip of Spain, just across from Africa, that has an airport runway running across the entire width of it, that is roughly the border between Gibraltar and Spain. The iconic limestone rock that towers above is an awesome sight. One of the two pillars of Hercules. The other is in Africa. We wasted no time before we were off to explore a tiny British enclave in the south of Spain that has existed longer than the USA and yet covers less than 2.6 square miles, has a population of only 32,000, and that has over 300 days of sunshine a year. And this is one of them. Because of its strategic location, it's been continually fought over for centuries. And yet it's still a small part of England in the heart of the Mediterranean. It was a 30-minute stroll from the ship to the city. As soon as we entered through the gates, we were in Casemates Square. This was destroyed in the Great Siege of Gibraltar from 1779 to 1883 and slowly rebuilt afterwards. It's now the main square with many attractions for tourists. Fish and chips and full English breakfast available all day. And glass blowing factory, now a major attraction. There's indeed a strong British feel to the place, though it certainly has its own unique identity and was refreshing to see. In medieval times, this was the Hangman's Square. Today it's filled with restaurants and cafes. We even met up with a good friend, Larry from the Philippines, who's our waiter in the main dining room of the ship.
Me and Larry. In Gibraltar.
Yes.
It was his day off, so we decided to make him a film star. It's a great place to relax and watch the world go by. For me, the great fascination being that it's like High Street England in the heart of the Mediterranean. Fish and chips and paella, ubiquitous, as well as Dorothy Perkins and Madeleine. Al fresco curry and sushi, no joke. This being an Indian-Japanese restaurant. The pound shop is here too. I love the traffic-free pedestrian precincts. Coffee time in an attractive cafe. Great coffee, cakes, and an A1 people-watching location. Yes, clearly their daughter for sure.
Lost again, going back around. Dreaming of a time.
First impression, it's a fascinating place. Different. Mediterranean but not Mediterranean. British but not British. But quaint. Curious. idiosyncratic and special.
Send a little love and I'll make it back. Send me a letter and a bottle of wine, telling me I will be fine.
The Royal Engineers statue commemorating their part in the defence of Gibraltar. And now we set out to ascend to the heights, where we'll know we'll get the spectacular view from the top, the infamous monkeys, and maybe a glimpse of Africa. To get there involves walking through history again to the cable car, "412 meters in 6 minutes. Get the camera ready and enjoy the sights." The Rock of Gibraltar, where Hercules separated Europe from Africa. Look north and there is Spain. Look south and there's Africa. Look over the narrow strait and see the location of history throughout the ages from ancient times, where the heroes of Greek mythology sailed the seas and medieval armadas fought battles. The entrance to the Mediterranean, where Africa meets Europe. Up we go.
Oh, can't you see I'm so high, so high. I'm erase the aeroplanes up in the sky, in the sky. I'm so high, so high. I'm a dream and fall asleep on clouds tonight. Yeah.
Peaceful, a truly spectacular sight. Time to have a look around. I have indeed travelled extensively. There have been many sights that took away my breath. My first glimpse of Jerusalem as we arrived from Amman in Jordan on the Jericho Road. The view from Victoria Peak over Hong Kong. The sight over Machu Picchu, the lost city of the Incas in Peru. In these instances, arriving the back way, so to speak, and suddenly being confronted with a spectacular sight. Here we had slowly ascended, taking in the view, but I was still unprepared as I walked out at the summit to see the rock itself in situ, like a diamond in a beautiful setting. Both Nate and I had been looking forward to this. We'd heard so much about it. The Britishness, phone booths, post boxes, fish and chips, the airport running through it. But being confronted by the view at the summit was special. And then there's the monkeys. Yes, they are monkeys, not apes. You either love them or hate them. My old friend Samuel used to say, the only reason why God created men is because he was disappointed with the monkeys. Not this one, though. Up here there are 6 troops totaling around 150, Europe's only wild primates. If we discount Manchester on a Saturday night, that is. They are Barbary macaques, apparently introduced by the Moors, the Muslim invaders from North Africa. There's a legend that so long as the monkeys live on the rock, the British will have control. It goes back to the 18th century when France and Spain fought for 4 years to take Gibraltar from the British. And on one occasion the British were alerted to an attack by the monkeys who created a great commotion. Thus they saved Gibraltar from a fate worse than death. European rule. I was hoping to see a plane either land or take off, but as there are fewer than 20 flights a day, it was unlikely. Africa in the distance, only 13 miles away, but it's a little misty today. When we look north, Spain is beyond the runway. The monkeys are wild, so one has to be vigilant. They're quite a comical lot. This one practicing omphaloskepsis, the habit of contemplating one's navel in order to experience celestial joy. He's obviously not there yet. Meanwhile, down below there's a jet ski race. We continued to explore a little, but time was short. There are actually 34 miles of tunnels in the rock, more than double the length of its entire road network below. The purpose was both defense and attack. It is possible to walk up, and many do that. Then there's the other alternative, lying on the beach. The skywalk is the glass-bottomed walkway which sufferers from acrophobia may find distressing. Unusual aspects. Then back down to earth. The thing I love about travel is that I can film it. I was once told that I only get to see a place through the lens of my camera. Well, I can relive it anytime I want. And not only that, but millions, yes, I mean millions, are coming with me and enjoying it too. And suddenly, thanks to the internet, it's immortal, maybe eternal. People will watch this 100 years from now and say, look at those funny cars, look at those strange clothes, how the world has changed. This is the southern end of Main Street. The King's Chapel 1560 sounds interesting. Apparently it's been here since 1486. Indeed, inside it was elegant. It was actually built by the Franciscans and was part of a Franciscan friary, which later became the governor's residence. Interesting memorials on the walls. It's now the military chapel, but visitors are welcome to come and see. It even has a mini pipe organ. Now it's time to enjoy more of this fascinating place. We're still on Main Street. The Angry Friar, I'm sure, has an interesting history. Dieu et mon droit being the royal motto, God and my right, which logically denied the peasants theirs. A Jewish community still here, and so is the Morris Oxford 16, dating back to 1934, 2062cc engine, burr walnut interior, hydraulic shock absorbers, thermostatic cooling system, electric windscreen wipers, and this, being a special coupe, is fitted with a sliding sunroof. They don't make cars like that anymore. Then our thoughts turn to food. The climate here lending itself perfectly to alfresco dining. The choice was fish and chips or paella. My only comment is that it tasted better than we later had in Valencia, though it has more to do with the restaurant than the location. So we sat and enjoyed the ambiance. Nathan writing his postcards, prawn kebabs, salad and paella. And then the last stroll of the cruise through these historic streets, actually along the coast, back to Casemates Square, mailing the postcards on the way. It's been a great place to end the trip. I don't get a chance to see much of Nate, and this week we've made some great memories. We'll now sail back to Malaga, where Nate will leave and my daughter Rachel will arrive. So we get the last sight of this iconic rock as we look back, and as we look the other direction, there's North Africa.
That is Africa. Africa.
As our usual tradition, we do the special meal in Sirocco's dining room. Deep-fried prawn ball to start, cream of mushroom soup, escargot in garlic butter and garlic bread. Nate's favorite since he was a kid. Pâté, French onion soup with Emmental crouton, Caesar salad, Parma ham, tomato and mozzarella, then lemon sorbet to cleanse the palate. Before a 14-ounce T-bone for Nate, tenderloin for me, then coffee with cream, and Eton mess and cherry jubilee with ice cream for dessert. Next morning we departed